Hello, I'm Lincoln, and I'm back on my channel, Military Election Forecasting. Today, I'm going to be giving you an updated presidential election between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. And, obviously, I've been gone for a little while. Like, I've been kind of inconsistent. And, Uncle Sam put me to work last week. Like, I keep saying I'm going to come on here and upload, and it's kind of hard to. So, I'd really appreciate if you guys really subscribe. Like, if you guys actually, really subscribe, like the video and etc. I don't get as many views on this channel, so it's kind of hard to like build consistency, but I'm gonna really make it a mission of mine to try to improve that going into November. But anyway, we're gonna dive straight into it. So I've already filled out the safe states for both candidates. So I have 191 safe electoral votes for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, 100 for Donald Trump, as well as JD Vance. Why do I have that as Mike Pence? Like, Mike Pence is not his running mate. Let me go ahead and change that. But anyway, I'm glad I was able to catch that. But regardless, we're going to dive straight into it. So, starting with the likely states for Donald Trump, he has a lot more. So, he has Nebraska's first congressional district, as well as Kansas, Mississippi, South Carolina, Alaska. Those are the prominent ones I'm going to bring up, and I'm going to bring up some other ones that are obviously more competitive, but still in its column. So Alaska is a state that Donald Trump won by like 10 in 2020, but Alaska's been trending to the left for a while. Anchorage is quite educated. It's pretty moderate, and makes up a huge chunk of Alaska's population. Joe Biden won Anchorage. I believe Kamala will outrun Joe Biden in Anchorage, and a lot of military members are stationed in Alaska. Alaska has one of the highest proportions of military people relative to the electorate, and active service members have been shifting dramatically to Democrats. In particular, Democrats won almost every military base in 2020, and you're seeing that margin increase for Democrats. And if they continue that, I think that Trump only wins Alaska by like 8. He's still going to win here quite substantially, but the margin will be reduced from 2020. Kansas and Nebraska's first congressional district, very similar demographics, very educated, very moderate. And, these areas have been trending to Democrats pretty substantially. I do expect for Donald Trump to do decent. Like, I don't think he will collapse in these areas, but I think that he only wins Kansas by like 11 or 12. I think that he wins Nebraska's first by like 9 or 10. Nebraska's first has been drawn to be more democratic as well, and it's left trending. I expect it to be, I expect Donald Trump to win convincingly, but I think it'll be closer. Mississippi and South Carolina also similar demographics. These Trump only won South Carolina by 11. He won Mississippi by like 16. I think Kamala Harris is going to do quite well with black turnout. I do think that Donald Trump is going to do well with rural white voters. So, he's going to win these states convincingly, but I do think that he only wins South Carolina by like 10, maybe 9. I think he only wins Mississippi by like 13 or 14. Moving on to other likely states, I have Iowa, Ohio, Maine second district, as well as Florida. So in Iowa, I recently saw, a prominent poster, Seltzer, like this is the best poll in Iowa that had, Kamala only being down by 4. But I think the poll is delusional. Like, I don't see a scenario where Kamala only loses Iowa by 4. I think that that's just like, I'm gonna, like, when I argue my predictions, I argue with math, historical trends, and data. And there's no historical trends to back up the fact that Iowa is gonna vote, gonna be that competitive. This is a state that Trump, the lead barely narrowed for Trump in 2020. And there are a lot of working class pro choice voters, but working class voters primarily vote on the economy issues, that immigration issues that, Trump is strong on. So I do expect for Trump to do very well in Iowa. Iowa doesn't really have any demographics for Democrats to improve. There are some educated suburbs they can improve, Des Moines or et cetera, some of the universities, but for the most part, Iowa doesn't have a large Black population. It doesn't have a large, Hispanic population, or it doesn't have a prominent educated population as well for Democrats to really improve in. So Iowa's a state where I expect for Kamala Harris to do quite bad. Like, I could see her losing by more than 10. In Ohio, I do expect for Trump to improve in the rural areas. I do think that Ohio won't be that bad for Kamala because, Kamala Harris is going to do well with black turnout in Cleveland and in, Columbus and Cincinnati and the inner cities. Like, I think she'll outrun Joe Biden there. And I do expect for Kamala to do better in the suburbs, Delaware County, right outside of Columbus has been trending to Democrats, so I do expect for her to continue to transit in suburbs and do better with black turnout. So she probably only loses Ohio by like 8, the same as Joe Biden. Because yes, Trump does improve a lot in the rural areas, but Kamala is able to counteract that, like Biden was able to, because black turnout is better in the suburbs, trending in her favor. Maine second district, also a very working class district, similar to Iowa. Maine second district is more educated than Iowa and Ohio as a like in total, but regardless, this is the prime demographic for Donald Trump. The very weak Republican governor who Republican gubernatorial candidate and ran in 2022. He lost by like 13 or 14. He was still able to win his district. I expect for Donald Trump to win this by way more than 5. I can see him even up improving from 2020. Florida is very interesting because I can see Florida being lean. I think that people are overrating Trump's chances in Florida. Like, I don't think Kamala has that much of a chance at it. But I think that, 2022 was a bad year for Democrats in Florida. They were working with like a R plus 12, R plus 13 environment. Also, like, it's just a lot of places that Democrats are going to improve in Florida, but do the pluses outweigh the minuses? I do think Kamala will underperform Joe Biden with older white voters in Florida, a lot of the white retirees. I do think she'll do better, with educated white voters in particular in the suburbs. And, that's something that's going to help her. I think that she's going to blow it out the water in Broward. Like, Broward County in particular is a place where Democrats are really making a lot of improvements, and I do expect for her to be able to really succeed when it comes to, like, getting turnout up there as well. In Miami-Dade, there have been polls showing Kamala Harris doing well with Cuban voters, but I don't buy that bullshit. Like, I think that she can outrun Biden because, these Cuban voters, they always been voting for Republicans, but they voted like 70-30 for Trump. Like, they used to be kind of split. So, it's possible that she's able to improve with those voters, but I doubt it. And even if she does improve, I don't think it'd be dramatic enough to substantially make Florida too competitive. I do think that Miami-Dade could shift to the left. I think that's controversial, but Miami-Dade, yes, there's a lot of areas that Republicans are improving in and doing well, but Democrats do have a base in Miami-Dade because they do have Little Haiti, they have Miami Gardens, a lot of Miami-Dade has a large black population. Also, it's a lot of educated white areas in Miami. We're talking about Miami Beach, Center City, downtown Miami. So, I think that she could halt Donald Trump's improvements in South Florida, but she's not going to do well enough in the rest of the state to come close to winning. So I think that she loses by like 5 or 6, but I could see it being like 3 or 4, being down to lean. But I'm going to fill out the likely states for Kamala. And, we have New Mexico, we have Minnesota, we have Nebraska second district, we have Maine, and we have New Hampshire. So in Nebraska, I mean, in New Mexico, I expect for Kamala to do well with Hispanic Latino voters. I could see Trump improving with some of the working class Hispanic voters, especially in rural areas. But Kamala is going to improve with educated white voters in Santa Fe and et cetera. So I don't realistically see it being that competitive. I think she wins by like 12 or so. And Nebraska second district, very educated, very left trending. Mitt Romney won this by 7. Trump only barely won this in 2016 by like 1 or 2. He lost by more than 6. And it has been drawn to be a little bit more Republican, but it's still left trending. I could see him losing this by like double digits. I think he only loses it by like 9, Trump, but it's a very toxic place for Republicans, and I don't see him doing too well here. Minnesota is a state I think Kamala wins by like 7 or 8. I think she's being very overrated in Minnesota. Like, a lot of people think that Tim Walz is going to help her win Minnesota by some lopsided margin. Tim Walz barely even outran Joe Biden in 2022. And, he lost some of the working class counties that Biden was able to win, but he was able to do well in the suburbs, like every Democrat, and he was able to overcome that. He's not ridiculously popular in Minnesota. He used to have a lot of appeal to working class voters, but that's kind of changed as he's progressed throughout his, time in politics. So I don't think that he's going to help her that much in the state. Maybe a little bit, but I think that the voters that were going to vote for Kamala were going to vote for her anyway. The same way they voted for Joe Biden. So I think that she wins by 7 or 8. I could see her struggling in Minneapolis, but for the most part, I think that she does, win, quite convincingly. And New Hampshire and Maine, these are areas that are very educated, very college educated, and I do expect her to perform quite well in states like that. I think that she wins New Hampshire by like 8. I think she wins Maine by like 10. Very educated, very left trending, and that's an issue for Republicans. And in Virginia, it's been a lot of delusion from Republicans' perspective about Virginia. Like a lot of Republicans really think they can win Virginia or even make it competitive. Virginia has the two worst demographics for Republicans. Virginia is very educated and very black. Those are the two worst combinations for Republicans because you have a demographic group that breaks 90-10 for each, in every election. And then you have educated white voters that are trending to Democrats, right? In Virginia, like I think Trump loses by like 12 or 13. I don't care what any poll says. And I make the same argument for him in Iowa. Like, I don't care what poll says Kamala's competitive in Iowa. Iowa's not going to be competitive. That goes for Trump in Virginia. Kamala is a very strong candidate for Virginia. She's very strong with black voters. She's doing well with college educated voters. And if she continues the trends in Nova and, gets black turnout up, Trump is going to lose Virginia by double digits. Like, there's no argument, no ifs, no ands, no buts. There are some places for Trump to improve, but he did improve in some of the areas in Virginia. Like he improved in the rural parts of the state. He still lost. So no ifs, no ands, no buts. I think he loses quite convincingly. Now we're gonna move on to the lean states. Filled out all the likely states for both candidates. So I'm gonna fill out the only lean state that I have for Donald Trump, and that is Texas. I think Donald Trump only wins Texas by like 3. He won it by 9 in 2016. He only won it by 5.5 in 2020. I think that narrows down to 3. Mitt Romney won it by like 16. The Dallas and Austin suburbs, Trump is just so toxic for these voters. And especially with the rhetoric that he's been pushing as of recently. We're talking about, what is it, Haitian immigrants stealing cats and dogs and eating them, transgender surgeries on illegal immigrants. What else did he say that was just like absolutely insane? At least to moderate voters. He also, just said some crazy, abortion after the ninth month. Like, this is some crazy shit, for average, educated, moderate voter in the suburbs. And he's going to really struggle with those voters. I could even see Kamala not losing ground in the Rio Grande Valley. I could see, Trump continue to improve there. But, I think that working class areas that are predominantly non-white definitely have I could see Kamala doing better than Biden in those areas. But obviously Trump could improve in the Rio Grande Valley. If he does, it's not really that relevant. It's not that many voters there. But that I think that Kamala does well in Austin. I think that she does well in the Dallas suburbs. But the issue for Kamala is going to be getting the numbers she needs in Houston in the inner cities. In Houston in particular, like, yes, she's improving there, but she's not improving there by the numbers that she needs to win. Like, I think that she's going to do well in the black neighborhoods in Houston. I think that she's going to do very well in the wealthy, white, educated parts of Houston as well. But, some of the working class Hispanic areas, working class, Vietnamese Americans in Harris County, she's gonna struggle to dramatically improve there. And I don't think she's gonna get turned up nowhere near enough to win the state. But I do think that Biden only won Harris by like 13. I think she wins by like 17, 18. So, that's gonna put a substantial dent in Trump's, statewide total coupled with, the suburban transfer, et cetera. But it's not gonna be enough for her to come close to winning the state. Moving on to the lean states for, Kamala, and we have a lot. This makes Kamala Harris president. I'm going to give her Michigan. I'm going to give her Pennsylvania. I'm going to give her Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia. That puts her up to 293 electoral votes, well past 270. And we're going to start out west. In Nevada, Kamala Harris is winning almost every poll, even Republican internals like Trafalgar that had Trump winning Nevada in 2020. These, polls had Adam Laxalt destroying Captain Cortez Masto. They lost both of those encounters. I think Kamala's a strong candidate for working class voters in Las Vegas. Las Vegas is, became a lot more Hispanic, a lot more Black, a lot more Asian American. And those are voters that, I think Kamala is better than Joe Biden for. And, Washoe County, I think she's going to continue the trends in those areas. And I do think Trump dominates in the rural parts of Nevada, but it's not enough to make up for, where he's weak. In Arizona, I think that Trump is going to do well in the rural parts of the state. But, the rural areas in Arizona are quite insignificant on a grand scale. The biggest issue for Donald Trump is Maricopa. Maricopa is very educated. This is a county that trended rapidly to Democrats, since Hillary Clinton's election. And you keep hearing Republicans say they're going to win it, Arizona. I think Arizona is like the state, like that'd be the last state for him to win. Like his chances in Michigan are almost better than they are in Arizona, which like really puts it into perspective. Like Arizona is so anti-Trump, so anti-populism, and any kind of candidate that runs on his rhetoric gets destroyed in Arizona. We saw this with his proteges, Blake Masters, Kerry Lake, Martha McSally. 2022 was horrible for Republicans in Arizona. And, you're seeing Trump run on the same rhetoric. The very anti-abortion rhetoric, the conspiracy theory rhetoric is going to do horrible with white educated voters in Maricopa. In the rich upper class suburbs, that's where Trump is weak, and you're going to see that continue. I'd be flabbergasted if Trump won Arizona. I don't see it. You keep hearing him bring up the argument of immigration, and that might help him with rural voters in the Rust Belt. It might help him with, some working class Hispanic voters. But the problem for Donald Trump is wealthy white voters, wealthy white women, educated white men in the suburbs of Phoenix. And those voters, they don't want to hear that bullshit. So I don't realistically hear any argument for him. And unless he can stop the trends in Maricopa, which I seriously doubt, he's not going to win the state. With the rhetoric that he's pushing as of recently, he's going to lose Maricopa by like 4 or 5. He's going to lose Arizona by like 2 or 3. Same thing in Nevada. I think he loses Nevada by like 2 or 3 as well. In Michigan, I do expect for Kamala to do well with Black voters in Detroit. I think that she continues the improvements in Oakland County as well as in Western Michigan, Grand Rapids, as well as um, Ottawa County. Ottawa's a Republican county, but it's been narrowing up. I think that she improves dramatically there. I think that she could have some struggles with young voters in Ann Arbor, but as of today, I think she's going to do well. But by election day, if Trump played his cards right, like he could really, turn a lot of the younger voters against Harris because of her rhetoric dealing with Israel. But as of now, I don't think it's going to play that big of an impact. Also, the Muslim vote is definitely a problem for Harris, but they don't make up that large of a chunk of the population. And most of them are in Wayne County, a predominantly Black county where Kamala Harris is strongest. Black voters in Detroit are going to far overpower Arab voters in Dearborn. So it's not going to really make that big of an impact. I do think that Trump is going to improve a lot in the rural working class areas. A lot of Republicans are expecting for a big night in Macomb County, a working class suburb of Detroit. Macomb is getting more educated and more Black. A lot of Black people from Detroit are moving to uh, Macomb, as well as a lot of educated voters because Macomb is a lot more affordable than Oakland and other Detroit suburbs. But so it kind of limits Trump's ability to really drive up turnout with working class white voters because they're being counteracted by other demographic groups that are more favorable to the Democrats. So the last 2 states, these are the most important states. Pennsylvania, I think that Trump is going to do bad in the suburbs. I think that he lost Chester by like 17. I think that he loses by more than 20. He lost Montgomery by 26. I think that he loses Montgomery by like 30. I think that, he lost Delaware by 24. I think that he loses Delaware by like 28. Right? I think the margins in the Philly suburbs are going to be insane. I think that, Allegheny has been really rapidly trending to the left, especially since 2020. Like Democrats have been really running it up in Allegheny. I think that he loses Allegheny by like 23, 24. Allegheny is the largest state in Pennsylvania. Allegheny is the most populous county in Pennsylvania. So that's a huge problem for him. And I do think that he can improve a lot in the rural areas, but it's just not enough. Like Kamala Harris is going to do well with Black turnout in Philadelphia, which is where Joe Biden was, struggling. That's where people were afraid of for Joe Biden. She's going to do strong with, turning out those voters in Philadelphia and keep up the suburban trends. Like even if Trump gets rural turnout like through the roof, I could see him, narrowing it down to being under 1%. But I don't see a path for him. And when I argue things, I'm going to argue things with math, data, historical trends. Like I see how Trump could win Pennsylvania. Like he needs for Black turnout to not be good, and he needs to not do better in the suburbs, but kind of halt them. Like if he can do damage control, and if he can just really hit the gas in the working class rural parts of the state, he can win. But those are 3 things that he's not doing as of today, right? So I don't realistically see that. But the only check mark I see, I think that he'll get very strong numbers of rural working class voters, but that's just not enough to win Pennsylvania. In Georgia, Kamala Harris is a very strong candidate for Black voters. She has a lot of support amongst, Black voters, in particular Black women in the Atlanta area. And, Atlanta area has a lot of HBCU grads, a lot of AKAs, Black sorority members. These are Kamala Harris's just loudest supporters on social media and just in general. And, these Black female led organizations in Georgia are going to have a field day with turning out Black voters, in my opinion. I could see, obviously Kamala Harris could, underperform the numbers she needs to with Black turnout to win Georgia. But as of today, I think that, she gets strong Black turnout in the Atlanta metro area and she wins substantially. I do think Trump can improve in, a lot of the working class, rural, white areas in Georgia, but it's just not enough. He's also losing ground in the other small cities in Georgia like Savannah, Columbus, Macon, and Augusta. The Black Belt is trending to Republicans because of population loss, but it's not going to really make that big of an impact. It's not going to be people that live there, and that's how I expect. So now I'm going to move on to the tilt states for both candidates, and I have one going in one direction, and I have another one going in another one. So I'm going to give Wisconsin to Kamala, and I'm going to give Donald Trump North Carolina. So in Wisconsin, I think that Trump is being underestimated in Wisconsin. I think that Kamala's being underestimated in Arizona and Georgia, maybe even Pennsylvania, Michigan as well. But I think that Trump is being underestimated in Wisconsin. Even before Biden dropped out, this is what the state Biden was polling the best in, which doesn't really make any sense because it's the most conservative of the Rust Belt states. And Kamala Harris is not that strong of a candidate for Wisconsin. I think that she has the momentum behind her to win, but she has a lot of weaknesses in Wisconsin. She's gonna like the working class parts of Wisconsin are nowhere near maxed out for Republicans. Like, we talk about Pennsylvania where Trump doesn't really have that much room to improve. But in Wisconsin, like he has a decent amount of room to improve. Like Democrats are doing way better with working class white voters than they should be doing, right? So, there's a lot of room for Democrats to fall. And, Kamala can only fall so much in one election. But regardless, like, there's a lot of room for Trump to improve rural areas as well. But obviously, I think that as of today, I think that she kind of slows down the progression. I do think that Trump does continue improving as he was able to in 2020 in these areas. But I think that, Kamala is going to do well with young voters in Madison. She's going to do well with Black turnout in Milwaukee. She's going to get the suburban trends in Waukesha. I think she cracks like 40% in Waukesha. And then when she's doing that, like, I think that she does win, by a pretty sizable margin. Not sizable, I think that she wins by like half a point or so. But I think that, with those demographics, she should win. And I do see it for Trump. Like, Democrats have been struggling to turn out Black voters in Milwaukee. We saw this in 2022. Trump could use the pro-Palestine movement to really, stop a lot of progressives in Dane or Madison from turning out for Kamala, but it's unlikely. Like, I expect for Kamala to like almost break 80 in Dane. Like, Dane has been going insane since 2020. So with that, like, I do think that she pulls off a narrow victory in Wisconsin, but I do see a path for Trump to win the state very easily. In North Carolina, I do expect for Trump to hold on. I think that a lot of Republicans are delusional about North Carolina. Like a lot of Republicans act like Democrats cannot win the state. And there are some Democrats that are so confident that Kamala is going to win it as well. So, it's both sides that are being delusional. I'm very unbiased. Like if you don't have the data, you don't have the math, you don't have the facts to back it up, don't bring the argument to me. But in North Carolina, like the the first mail-in ballots did not look good for Democrats. I do want to say caution. Yes, like the Black electorate was trash, like in terms of like the requestees. But Black people vote in person early. They don't like to vote by mail. Like most people that vote by mail are white liberals, white educated voters. So then, they're not Black voters. So that's part of the reason why I think the turnout was so bad. We will be able to track North Carolina's elected by race, just like Georgia. So we will see. And I'm gonna wait. Like I think Kamala could win the state, but I need to see the electorate. I need to see the early vote data. I need to see the share of the Black electorate being higher than it was in 2020 to move North Carolina up to being Democratic. Democrats have a 16-year Black turnout problem in North Carolina. 16 years. And just seeing that erased in this election, like I think Kamala Harris is a strong candidate for Black voters. I think that she does well, but I don't think that she just gets the turnout that she needs to win. She could, and that's why I feel like Trump supporters are delusional because Trump does have some room to improve it in some of the working class urban areas. I think Kamala's going to do well in the research triangle. She's going to do well in the Charlotte suburbs. But can she get the turnout in inner city Charlotte? Can she get the turnout in Raleigh, right? Like, can she get the turnout in these, really black areas? And that's where I'm trying to say, like, it remains to be seen. A delusional argument you keep hearing from Republicans is the black vote in North Carolina is trending to Republicans, despite the fact that a black vote in Georgia is also trending to Republicans, and Republicans are still losing the state. Population loss, the black vote in Virginia is also trending to Republicans as well. Virginia has voted to the left. So these black vote areas don't really have that much of, don't have a large chunk of the population. Democrats have a lot of good things going for them in North Carolina, but I need to see it to believe it. So I'm very factual, very upfront. If Kamala gets black turnout up in North Carolina, Trump is going to lose. Republicans are doing well, white voters in the state, but they're inelastic. Like white voters in North Carolina are quite inelastic. There's not that much room for, a dramatic variation for what we got in 2020, right? Black voters only made up like 19% of North Carolina's electorate in 2020. Democrats get that up to 22, 23%. Trump is going to lose the state, but can they get it up to 22, 23%? That's the big question. But that's all I have to say for the most part. I have Kamala Harris winning 303 to Donald Trump's 235, the same electoral map from 2020, except Michigan, except Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Arizona being moved up to lean from 2020. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe down below. Make sure you have a nice day, you guys. Goodbye.